All right, bang, bang. Today is Thursday. It is May 1st. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Today, I am joined by ASAC Mike Gannon. He runs the DEA office in Indianapolis, Indiana. Mike, thanks for doing this. I'm so excited to have you.
It's an honor for me to be here, and what a privilege, and thanks for having us. Great opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's I've been talking to Luis for years now, I feel. He used to work for the Chicago Police Department. Now he's with you. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, so I'm really fired up that it's going to happen.
And as you know, he's one of the best public information officers around. We're blessed to have him, and just great that we're here.
He is great. You're right. ASAC, I liked, based on all the TV shows and all the movies and stuff, and I felt that that's a power acronym, I feel.
It is.
It was nice to get that out.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys like that or not, but.
No, I don't mind it at all. I mean, that's our title.
Yeah.
It's like anything. We have chains of command that we respond to and everything like that. So it's definitely what it is for us. And I'm honored to be here as the ASAC.
There you go. And it's Assistant Special Agent in Charge.
That's correct.
Okay, nice. Hey, guys, before we get going here, I want to talk about my friends at Ollie. If your dog could talk, they'd beg for Ollie. The full-body tail wag, the excited little hops, the big, goofy grin. That's the Ollie effect. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition and 5 drool-worthy flavors, even for the pickiest eaters. Made in U.S. kitchens with high-quality, human-grade ingredients. Ollie's food contains no fillers, no preservatives, just real food. And here's the thing. Healthier food means a happier pup. More energy, shinier coats, better poops, and more excitement at mealtime. For any first-timers, Ollie will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks' worth of meals, a free storage container for mess-free serving, and a guide of how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/dogwalk. Tell them all about your dog and use code DOGWALK to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/dogwalk and enter code DOGWALK to get 60% off your first box. So as you could tell, Mike, you're obviously from Boston. I don't know if the accent's been popped out enough in this podcast.
I'm sure it'll come up pretty quickly.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. How'd you get into the DEA?
Well, I was a local police officer in North Providence, Rhode Island, and a lot of what I was interested in was cases that involved drug arrest. So I just have always had an interest in doing that as a professional. And so I've positioned myself that way by going through college, having a degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in criminal justice. And I knew that would be a field I'd want to do. And let's be honest, like what do we do when we grow up as kids, right? You see movies, you see TV shows, you see police shows. Is there anything better than being a narc and doing undercover operations and undercover surveillances and just an exciting career to want to be a part of, and I was able to live a dream out for me, and I can't even believe I'm coming up on 26 years with DEA, and it's like, where did this career go? How did things even happen? And it's never even felt like a job.
Yeah, because that's got to be, I assume, a lot of police departments that's probably like the goal is to get up to the feds or the DEA, the ATF, like, right? Like, isn't that kind of how many percentage would you say it's their goal to reach that?
Well, I think a lot of people, it all depends on their situation, right? But what's so great about our job is we work hand in hand with our state and local partners, and there's no better feeling than that, because oftentimes we're working with the very best that the departments have to offer that are in those units, and we just get to work with them like all the time. So it's a lot of fun. Even though we're federal agents, we get in the trenches with our state and local partners, roll our sleeves up, and work with them hand in hand, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, what is I guess when you first enter in, what's below an ASAC, and like what's the chain of command?
Yeah. So how DEA kind of is structured. When you first get on the job, you're a special agent, and you have ranks as a special agent. You start out at grade levels, and you work your way up. So you could stay a special agent your entire career, and a lot of people decide to do that for family considerations and just a love of continuing to make cases. But the evolution after being a special agent for so many years and getting a good experience is you want to be a supervisory special agent. And in our line of work, we call that a group supervisor. Typically what happens as a group supervisor, you're going to run a squad of 10 to 15 people. We refer to it as a group. And you could be running a task force that's comprised of state and local partners along with DEA special agents. And then your job is to go out there and investigate narcotics violations and work hand in hand on investigations. And I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more how that happens throughout the podcast. But that's the evolution. And then after being a group supervisor for so many years, you do have to do a rotation. For DEA, you have a headquarters rotation that you're mandated to do. So what ends up happening is sometimes people will promote at different times in their career because they may not want to have to do a headquarters rotation for family considerations, because you do have to move some of these promotions that come up. So you could be a special agent in any part of the country, and you have opportunities to put in for a supervisor spot in other parts of the country or right where you're working. So that's a consideration how things work. And then the next line is you do a headquarters rotation. There's promotions that occur there. Then you go back into the field, and you could be an assistant special agent in charge, right up to the special agent in charge.
Okay, and how many people are in the DEA total?
Well, we have about 5,000 agents currently with DEA.
Now, the headquarters is in Virginia.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Arlington, Virginia.
And so I'm going to assume, you tell me if I'm wrong, but is it basically the mission statement is get drugs off the street?
Yeah, our job is to go out there each and every day and protect our communities, serve our communities, and dismantle criminal organizations. And by doing that, though, I always have a theory when we're working cases, big or small, we take them all. Because you don't realize sometimes a small case can get you right into an international case and right connected to a cartel. So you can never look at something like that's beneath us. That's not what we do. Because sometimes the not what we do leads you to a perfect example. And I remember a case that I had in Miami that went on for almost 7 years of yielding significant seizures results. Started out with a small buy an hour and a half away from Miami up into the West Palm Beach area when we were buying GHB. And this is in the heyday of the ecstasy time going on in the early 2000s. And real quickly, from starting to make small buys of GHB, we got onto an international drug trafficking organization operating out of the Netherlands, and we seized almost 500,000 ecstasy pills. But that started with the case that we should have easily just said, "I'll give it to someone else," and we worked it up. So that's why it's really important. Each case is unique. Each case is different, and you utilize a lot of different investigative techniques in every case. So that's what makes the job so exciting, because when you're in a group, you might have 10 to 15 people in your group, and I'm working on my cases with a partner, and then other people in the group are working on their cases, and we all come together as things start kicking off. So you're getting a lot of different experiences that you have.
So is there like a new kind of hot drug for every era? Like you said, ecstasy was big in the early 2000s. Why do you think that is? Like, why, and what is it now?
Well, the big thing that we're facing, the biggest crisis we're facing right now is the synthetic drugs. Okay, that means they're not plant-based. They're man-made, and that's what makes it very scary. And the fentanyl is the biggest problem that we're facing right now. So, just the fact that I'm on here able to talk to you about DEA, my career, but any awareness we can bring about fentanyl and the dangers of fentanyl, it's so important to illuminate that. And I try to tell people, when you look at using drugs, people are like, "Oh, cocaine's not that bad. It's a recreational drug." And they like to make like these things aren't bad. Just think about what fentanyl can be added, right? People will say, I'm gonna have a couple lines of coke. Well, you don't know if fentanyl was added into that. And when drugs come into our country, the entry points, whether it's California, Arizona, Texas, you look at things like it comes into our country. Somebody gets a hold of that. By the time it gets here in Chicago, or by the time it gets to where I'm at in Indianapolis, it could exchange hands 5, 6, 7, or 8 times. Each time it exchanges hands, somebody can put whatever they want into those drugs. Mm-hmm. So every time you take drugs in today's day and age, you're risking your life, because people want to stretch drugs. They want to cut drugs and they want to add to their profit, because if you're dealing drugs, all you care about is making money. You don't care who you're addicting, who you're affecting, and ultimately killing. So that's the challenges that we face. And I say it all the time. There's never been a worse time in our country to use drugs than right now, because you just don't know what you're getting. And fentanyl can be added and is added to heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and other drugs. And we'll talk later about the prescription drugs that it's also been added to.
Well, I guess my question is, outside of hospitals, people don't just use fentanyl straight up, right? Like, that's not really a common thing.
No, it isn't, because just to put things in perspective, if you look at what could be considered a lethal dosage unit for fentanyl, it's just 2 milligrams. And a really good illustration that we use with DEA, that's just enough to fit on the tip of a pencil.
Yeah.
So, and there's been things, and we have so many good awareness campaigns on DEA.gov. We had the one pill can kill that we still push. But what's really important about all that is it just puts in perspective how easy 2 milligrams can be slid into things. And we've had cases where somebody has a pill and they decide to just think of what an M30 oxycodone pill looks like, right?
Yeah.
So you get that pill and you break a quarter of that pill off, and then you take that quarter, but that was a quarter that had more than 2 milligrams in it, and then you die of a fentanyl poisoning.
Yeah.
So that's just how scary this is. And I couldn't tell you, in the role I have as the ASAC in Indianapolis, how many parents I've talked to, absolutely devastated, absolutely crushed, and just said, had I only known, I would have had these conversations with my kid. So the fact that you guys have us on here and we could talk about this, all we ask is, it's a force multiplier, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking, you got your audience here. Have a conversation with the loved one. Have a conversation with someone you know that might be addicted to drugs, and ask them to get help. Try to encourage them to get help. And I use this quote all the time. John Wooden, legendary basketball coach, right? He said, you can't live a perfect day until you've done something for someone who can never repay you. And we need so many more people to be like that are looking out for people, especially in today's day and age.
And I know, obviously, you're in the business of getting the drugs off the street, but something I've never understood, and maybe you can help me understand better, is what is the motivation for these people to cut stuff with fentanyl? What's the motivation to use this additive that we know is so deadly?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And what, just to kind of explain how fentanyl works, the precursors from fentanyl come from China, and then they're sent to Mexico, and then they're mass produced by the two dominant cartels in Mexico, which is Jalisco Cartel, CJNG, and the Sinaloa Cartel. And they have flooded the United States with the fentanyl. And what ends up happening, it's 50 times more potent than heroin. It's 100 times more potent than morphine, and it's highly addictive, and it's synthetically made. So you're not dealing with weather, plant, and other issues that make other drugs. This can be synthetically made and easily mass produced. So then what ends up happening, the reason they're putting this in other drugs, they might have weaker products and they may want to add it. It's a very strong high that occurs for people, even though, unfortunately, when people have addiction type issues, they can be always searching for like such a strong high. This high is strong, but it's short-lived. So what we've also seen is that people are taking xylazine, which is a veterinary tranquilizer, and they're adding that into other drugs such as heroin with fentanyl, because that can extend a high. So there's a lot of things that people are doing to try to get these products out there, and it's so dangerous for anybody that uses this, because you just don't know. These people aren't like rocket surgeons or scientists and doing all these things, and you just don't know what you're getting. There's no care, quality control in what people are getting. So that's what makes it so scary, and just messaging it is important.
I almost feel like that would be a good way to show people, like, you really don't know where it's coming, is if there was a if you were to somehow get an undercover in one of these manufacturing spots, like this is where they're doing this kind of shit, and this is how it's done. And, this is where you don't know where it comes from that you're putting in your bodies.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And we have really good illustrations that we do. And when we go do PowerPoints, whether it's to schools, community outreach, athletic teams, we do show the pictures of like clandestine laboratories that can occur in Mexico where the stuff is mass produced. And it is absolutely repulsive, repugnant. And then we look at a pharmaceutical grade laboratory where professional pills would be made. You can't even compare the two. Yeah. But that's what people have to understand. And another thing I wanted to share with you is like I was running a task force back in West Palm Beach from about 2011 through 2015. During that time frame, we came across one of the biggest synthetic marijuana distributors around the country. And a lot of times what would they do? They'd have a really nice package to catch a trendy marketing theme that they had, and then on the back it would just say not for human consumption. So as we were taking that case down, we seized tons of the it's called the Damiana leaf, and then what would happen is they would get chemicals from China, and back when I was doing it was UR 144, so that would give you something similar to like a THC, and then they would make that have not for human consumption. But when we took that down and we went and seized everything from a warehouse, what people have to understand, even with the synthetic marijuana that was occurring, right? They were using cement mixers. They were mixing it with acetone, and they were just spinning it and then doing it, and then they're putting it in these packaging. Do you think that anybody even has any control? And then in their theory was not for human consumption. So we still made the case, but that's just how easy it is. And then people have no idea how disgusting drugs is getting into our country, how long it sits out, how 6 or 7 people can touch it before you get it, and then why are you even using it?
Was that place fully charged and convicted?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Because that's an interesting kind of bypass they tried to use there. Not for human consumption, but it's
right.
pretty clear.
Well, that's the thing. I think people have to understand that significant drug dealers and cartels, they will look for any vulnerability in anything they can to try to, have their drug trafficking occur and not be affected.
They're just loophole finders, basically.
They'll look for anything. That's correct.
Now, as far as like the newer agents, how often out of the year are they undercover?
Well, undercover is a very unique thing that occurs. For me, I've been very blessed because I have worked undercover and I loved it. But it's definitely a skill. Just because you're a new agent doesn't mean you're going to do undercover. An undercover, a little different from the movies and everything like that, right? But you got to have the right person play the right role to do undercover. And it's so new agents, we definitely like new agents to have that opportunity to do it, but it's a case-by-case basis, and you have to evaluate what you're doing in the case, and is it the right move to slide somebody in an undercover capacity, depending on who you're dealing with. So that's why there's challenges with it, but it's a great investigative tool, and it's great for us to be able to do that. And I have done that on several occasions and really appreciated that moment of doing it. There's a lot of pressure that comes on you when you're in an undercover role. You have your whole group watching you. They're listening to everything you say. And then you're interacting with somebody that could be looking to rob you. They could be armed, and negotiations aren't always easy. And it's definitely a fun moment if that's what you like to do. And for me, I absolutely loved when I had those opportunities to do it. And would you like me to share a couple?
Yeah, of course. That's my next question. It's kind of like a dangerous situation you've been in.
So I'll share a couple of undercover stories that I think you might like. So one of them, we were able to cultivate an informant that was aware of a guy that was distributing significant quantities of cocaine. So he decided we were talking and we talked about how I could get slid in an undercover capacity. So we came up with the story that I was his cousin from Boston. And as you know, it's once I start talking about how to park the car or something, it's pretty obvious where I'm from. So that was an easy story to tell the guy. And as we were negotiating, he tells me the guy used to play professional baseball. So when I go and I meet with him, I don't even talk drugs. I'm not even going to talk. And I know I'm there to get a certain amount of cocaine. All I do is have the gift of gab, make the guy feel good, have a conversation, and let him know I'm all right. And so what do? We start talking about the Red Sox. And then I had to bring up 03, how my heart was broken. It's probably one of the worst moments in Boston, of being a Boston sports fan. Yeah. I still equate how devastating 2007 was for the Patriots, but 2003, it was just, we were supposed to win that game, and no matter what you say, it was devastating. And then of course you have to bring up 04, like, hey, we were the champions, and we came back, and that was probably one of the greatest comebacks I think anybody's ever seen. Ever. No question about it, right? So that's the conversation we're having. And then he shares with me, well, when I made my big league debut, I was in Fenway Park, and I am warming up in the bullpen, and they tell me you're coming in. And as he shares the story, he had orders to drill Mo Vaughn. And anybody that knows Mo Vaughn, he's not to be messed with, and you don't want to be being told you're going to drill Mo Vaughn, because if he charges the mound, the guy was worried about getting the shit kicked out of him. So as things play out, he tells me drilled Mo Vaughn. Unfortunately, he just took the base, and before I knew it, he slid the drugs right into my hand, and I paid him, and we went on and worked the case, and ultimately had to arrest him.
Boom! So you arrested. You pinched someone who was in a Boston Red Sox uniform, or he was playing the Red Sox.
Yeah, he was playing the Red Sox, and unfortunately, he was into dealing drugs, and he needed to be held accountable.
Yeah, for sure. No,
yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Once you because you didn't realize beforehand, did you say, right, that he was involved with the major leagues, or did you a little bit?
Well, I knew just from the background when we're interviewing informants, we try to find out as much as we can about a person and their background, and understand their propensity for violence or anything we can find out about them. So so I did have that understanding, and
but you just weren't prepared to talk Mo Vaughn, and
Oh yeah, no, I didn't expect that to come up. But my job is to make people feel comfortable and fit in and play the role that I was playing at that time.
Do you almost feel like an actor? Like, do you almost feel like you're?
Well, I think acting is an important thing, right?
Yeah, right.
Because what does everybody want to say? I knew you were a cop. They tell you that after you did the case and you put them in jail. But yeah, you do have to play that role, and that's why that's a unique position. And there's so many great things agents do, but that's just one of the tools that we implement into an investigative strategy. So another example of one of the undercovers I had. We had this enormous case that I was kind of talking about earlier, where I always use the analogy, big or small, we'll take them all. And I was referring to how we started to make small buys of GHB from an individual that was about an hour and a half away. And as things played out, we quickly got on to a major international ecstasy organization. But we were still aware of, from those initial GHB buys, and I don't know if you know what GHB is, but it's like gamma hydroxybutyrate, and it was also known as kind of like the date rape drugs, but it was common in bodybuilding circuits to induce sleep. So as we're working that investigation up, we were aware of a guy that was manufacturing 55-gallon drums of it in Palm Beach County, Florida. So we wanted to get into him, and we had an in through one of his associates. So I got introduced to him, and for a several-month period, I was going back and forth negotiating with him undercover, and I was making undercover controlled buys from him. And as the case played out, I'm having to come up with excuses because the guy's invited me to parties, invited me to go to the beach with him and his buddies and go chase girls at the time, and I'm trying to come up with all these excuses. So I decided I'd return the favor to him. And what ended up happening is, you're talking about the acting, right?
Yeah.
I knew we were going to do a big bust on him on, say, a Friday. And I knew he was going to give me 5 gallons of GHB. So what do I want to do? I want him looking past Friday, even though Friday, you're going to be arrested and things are going to change. I'm painting a picture for this guy, like we're going to keep doing business and other things going on. So what do? He keeps inviting me to go out. I said, well, hey, dude, listen, I got a buddy of mine that's got a yacht, and he's asking me if we want to come party. He's got a bunch of strippers from Tootsie's that are going to be rolling out. And he's telling me I can bring a couple friends. Are you in? Are you out? Of course I'm in. Of course I'm in. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll hook this up. Maybe probably Saturday or Sunday. So I just painted that illusion like something like that was going to happen. No problems. We did our deal. And as he hands me the 5-gallon water cooler filled with GHB, I'm walking it to the car, putting it in the back of the undercover car that I had. He sees the takedown vehicle coming, which was a van. And he looked like Scooby-Doo in the front yard. Like his body was moving 1,000 miles an hour, but he wasn't going anywhere. And ultimately, we did arrest him. And then we went on to the next source, who was doing the 55-gallon drums, and we were able to arrest him as well. So it worked out well. And those are just a couple of instances. Obviously, I've done more undercover than just that, but these are just a couple of examples of what we do when we're undercover. But a lot of fun goes into that, and a lot of hard work, and then you have to be on your A game while you're dealing with these people, no question about it.
So what's the rule on if you're in a tough situation and they're like, hey, I want to see you do it? Like, do you guys, is there a rule where it's like, well, sometimes you got to do what's best for the situation? Is there like a call for that?
Yeah, we adapt to any situation we're in. That's never had to happen to me. And we have takedown teams that are on agent rescue or confidential source rescue, so that does not have to play out. Mm-hmm. But you just never know what situation could unfold. Not saying that hasn't happened in narcotics investigations, but that typically would never happen with us. Could it happen? Yeah, it could absolutely happen. I mean, when you're in an undercover capacity, things can go south real quick. But we have a lot of plans in place, risk reward to what we're doing, and really that's our role. And we train on that as early as when we go through Quantico, Virginia. We train on, hey, agent rescue. Yeah. And we know like how we have to react, and that's the important thing of the brother and sisterhood in law enforcement. When you know you're being put up front and you're out there, you know that team has your back.
Right there with you, yeah. How prevalent is that GHB still?
I don't think it's as nearly as prevalent as it was back in the early 2000s, but our primary focus now is clearly working investigations involving fentanyl, heroin, methamphetamine, and even cocaine. Those are where we spend a lot of our time each and every day. And I think it's important for, like, when you look at numbers that have gone on for drug overdose deaths and drug poisonings that have happened throughout the United States, the numbers have been very high. But I like to let people know, like, each and every day, not only are we going out as DEA and doing unprecedented public awareness, going out and talking about the dangers of these type of drugs, especially fentanyl and methamphetamine, but each and every day we're working with our state and local partners. And what we do is we identify the best targets in our area responsibilities, and we work them up. And then what we do from there is we work them up to what other cities, what other states are they connected with. We work those people up. And oftentimes we develop grants and strategies on investigations that leads us to like an organized crime drug enforcement task force. That's a big vernacular in the government on like cases. It's known as OCDF. So we get funding and other types of resources to help work these bigger cases. So we do that each and every day. And then we identify the countries that it's coming from. A lot of the drugs are coming from Mexico, and we'll look to charge and indict those people. And now the challenges we face, we can't help that there are judges that'll give bonds to people that have no business getting a bond. We can't help that there are people that we arrested and they have ankle bracelets and they're still dealing out of their house and we're arresting them again. But what we do is we just keep working hard and we do the best we can to hold these people accountable.
And where are we at right now? Have fentanyl deaths, have they started to slow? Are we still kind of peaking? Where are we at?
No, we're definitely slowing it down, and they have about a 20% reduction that's gone on for the overdose deaths. And I want to share some of the statistics that we've had over the last several years in Indianapolis. And,
yeah, please do.
And what I think has been very important, like what we've been doing in Indianapolis, is we team up with the city police department, which is IMPD, and the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, and we've been working hand in hand with them on overdose deaths that where people died of an overdose poisoning. We've also collaborated with the coroner's office to get leads, because every time there's an overdose poison, they respond to the scene, and we're working hand in hand. And what's been important is we have been charging people on the deal and resultant in death cases on the state in Indiana, and we've had significant amounts of arrests. I think we're up to over 40 of them doing these type of cases. And they're the most challenging type of cases you can do, because you have to prove that the person that died of the drug poisoning and the person that you're looking to charge was the person that was responsible. So it's a big challenge to make those connections and look for a lot of different circumstantial evidence to put these cases together. But what we saw, for example, our numbers in 2023, there was 701 overdose deaths, and it was 543 that were fentanyl poisonings. Just recently, the 2024 numbers came in, and the 701 went to 506, and then the 543 went to 296, almost a 50% reduction. But this has been stuff we've been working on hand in hand, getting the messaging out there. And I think that's the important thing, using people as force multipliers to spread awareness and have these conversations. And as far as the awareness goes, I think it's so important to kind of talk about the prescription drugs as well, because what are some examples that I see, and I try to, any opportunity I get to talk to athletic teams, I do, because my background was sports. I was an athlete growing up, and I love to have conversations with athletes about that, especially people that think they're invincible because they are an athlete, right? And you see the mistakes that people will make. But what's so important about when you look at prescription drugs, let's talk for college, for example. Someone's just graduating high school, they're going to college. What do you do when you go to college? You're meeting people from all over the country and all over your state. Yep. So you're trying to fit in with these people. Another thing with that, what do you do when you fit in with these people? You might go to visit their friends, right? You might go over their house for a long weekend, and then you're trying to fit in with their friends. So you already have to have plans in place when someone's offering you these drugs. And this is how easy misuse of drugs can happen. For example, the three most commonly misused prescription drugs are M30s, Xanax, and Adderall. So what ends up happening, just simple, someone could have a legitimate prescription for Adderall. Someone could be with one of their friends, in whether it's high school or college, complaining about how they have to cram for a test. And the friend says, oh, hey, I take one of my Addies. This will help you out. You'll focus. You'll be laser focused for 5 or 6 hours. So then when the person takes that, that's what we like to refer to. That's misuse. You didn't need that. You're taking that because it was offered to you, and you think that it's going to help you. Well, what we try to tell people is you don't do that, because what ends up happening if you keep going down that shortcut path and your friend doesn't have that, right? Then what do? You go to a drug dealer to get it, or you go to social media to get it on various apps. And we already know the cartels have flooded our country with these look-alike prescription pills, and they're lacing them with fentanyl. So that's just how easy that could be. And that could be added to Xanax, that could be added to M30s. So that's what makes it so dangerous, because we just talked about that before.
What's an M30 exactly?
That's like the Percocet.
Okay.
An M30 Percocet. So those are the three most commonly abused things.
Why is Oxy's not on there anymore? Is that because of Purdue's been sued to the moon and we're all more aware of it now? Or?
Well, we had the whole crisis with that, and that's been addressed, but the cartels have taken advantage, and they're mimicking pills just like those. And for example, the M30s are the most commonly abused one, and that's being passed off like that, but it's laced with fentanyl. Mm-hmm. So why I say it's so important is because you have to have these conversations, and we're the first to say you never take something from a friend that's offering it. The only way you would take a prescription pill is if you went to the doctors, you were examined, because we're all different. Like you might be able to have a prescription pill that my body will reject and I can't have. So you only take a prescription pill You go to the doctors, they determined it was a medical necessity, they evaluated you and that you could handle it, then you got it from a licensed registered pharmacy. Never a friend and never a drug dealer on the street. And how many times do we hear of a person, I just took this one pill, I just did this, I didn't know. And it's like everybody that knew that person, their life is affected in a devastating manner. So that's why we have to have these important conversations.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to get back into the cartel. Obviously, you said fentanyl, it's coming from originally, I don't know if it still is, from China to Mexico to here. What makes the cartel so hard to really crack down on, besides the fact that they're mostly in Mexico and it's a different country, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, you look at sovereign countries, they have their laws, they have their rules and of how you deal with them and everything like that. I do think it's going to be very helpful that they've been designated as terrorist organizations, and that's going to give us other avenues to be successful collaboratively together with other DOD and law enforcement agencies to help curtail this ongoing problem that we're facing. But at the end of the day, these cartels are billion-dollar organizations, and they will look for anybody they have to pay off in other countries to facilitate the drugs getting into the United States. That they're going to do. And there's no question the border not being properly secured the last several years, that played a role with drugs pouring into our country. And obviously very happy to see that the border is being policed appropriately. However, the challenges that come with that is they will look for other vulnerabilities to get the drugs still into the country. But it's definitely a challenge, and it's an ongoing challenge. But at the end of the day, we still have to. We're going to do what we always do. We're going to go out to get the best seizures we can, and we're going to hold these people accountable. But having conversations like this, and then force multiplying it with members of the community coming out and talking about it, it's so important.
So if you guys were ever to get get a lead on, like, oh, we know where they're producing some stuff, the Sinaloas or whoever, do you guys have grounds to go in there and kind of?
Well, it's everything that happens is I've never worked in an overseas office, so I could just tell you how I know DEA navigates. However, that does happen all the time, and I know a case that we had in the Chicago division that I oversaw as the ASAC with agents and group supervisors that were working it. We were able to do investigative collaboration with the Mexican government on things that started out with pill presses and various things that were ongoing, and it led to one of the biggest seizures that they ever had, and this was going back a few years ago. Yeah. So the efforts of collaborative work happen all the time, and you just have to remember that these cartels are going to look for any vulnerability, even in their own countries, to make sure that they get the products here into the United States. But it's a challenge, and obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we look forward to it.
There's definitely a theory or a thought, or maybe even like, hey, of course this is going on. But is there a factor here where there are a faction, maybe they're wealthy Americans, maybe they're not, that are kind of helping these cartels?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand there's no question that the cartels dispatch people all over the country to receive their drugs and be part of working with them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they're definitely having people here in the United States that they send here to set up operations so they can move drugs. And being here in the Midwest, obviously it's a big challenge because there's so many different crossroads. Even where I'm at in Indiana, the crossroads of America, right? I mean, there's so many different routes that can get drugs all over the country that once it comes into the Midwest, and obviously Chicago, a huge hub. So there's definitely challenges with that. But that's why I say it's important for people to understand each and every day we're identifying the people that are in our areas, and we're doing our very best to investigate them and build a significant investigation that we know we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt and get them charged appropriately.
Is there like an estimated number of cartels that would be in a city like Chicago?
I don't have that exact, but the biggest cartels that would be here is going to be CJNG and Sinaloa, but there's so many different factions of other individuals that are doing drug trafficking, but those are the two major cartels that are just, throughout the Chicago area.
How has many states legalizing marijuana affected the DEA?
Well, I think when you look at states that are legalizing marijuana, I think it's important. I don't think when you say affects DEA, like for DEA, our job is to go out and investigate what falls under the Controlled Substance Act, and for us, marijuana is still on the books as illegal. Mm-hmm. And it's important for people to understand, like, where a lot of people get mixed up is they think like we're arresting a person for a marijuana cigarette, and that's not what we do as DEA. We're if we arrest somebody because it was a marijuana investigation, so you can put it in perspective, it really is somebody that has over 100 marijuana plants with a grassroots system in it, and they're trying to make hydroponic type marijuana, and it's that and up into ton quantities. It's significant quantities if they're being taken on a federal marijuana investigation. And I think some of the problems that people are seeing when the states have legalized marijuana is that you're having a lot of impaired drivers on the roadway. And I know the Rocky Mountain Height in Colorado did a very big study how that impacted Colorado significantly because of the impaired drivers that were on the road. And the other thing that I don't think a lot of people factor in, because they try to always downplay marijuana. This isn't the same marijuana that was in the 60s and 70s and people are talking about. The THC levels are through the roof, and a lot of studies are coming back how prolonged use of marijuana can lead to schizophrenia and other type depression issues long term. So definitely not something as a 25-year veteran with DEA I'm in favor of, but my job is to go out and investigate what are controlled substances. But I've seen many families be torn apart because of various marijuana things that led to a lot of other drugs, and it's definitely not something that I'm happy to see.
Mm-hmm. So DEA, do they still view marijuana as a controlled substance? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's still a controlled substance, no question.
Which I knew that because you can't use credit cards or something, right? Because it's all federal. I don't know. I think I knew something like that. It's like a cash only thing debit only, I should say. Do you think that view ever changes?
Well, my view doesn't really matter. My job is to go out and do it, but at the end of the day, you just hope that the people that are going to be making these decisions are actually factoring in the long-term ramifications that marijuana use provides. And then the other thing that needs to be factored in, because it is occurring, the cartels still haven't stopped producing marijuana. And for the states that were looking to get the taxation revenue off the legalized marijuana, what ends up happening is there's still the black market where people are selling it so they don't pay taxes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of challenges that come with it. And it's I think there's some significant studies that have shown mental illness that can come with it.
Has there ever been a controlled substance that the DEA has been, had under a controlled substance and then cleared later?
Yeah, I'm sure if you look back through the history of DEA, I don't have that right in front of me, but I'm sure there's been certain things that whether it's a Schedule 1, 2, or 3, they can go down in the scheduling and stuff like that for controlled substances.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I did not know that. So what do you think of like Oregon? They recently decriminalized drugs overall, right? And then they brought it back. Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, I think they realized they made a huge mistake. And then now they're looking back to charge people, which needs to be done. Look, at the end of the day, nobody's trying to hurt people that are responsible for using drugs. But at the end of the day, we got to protect our society, right? You can't have people being out on the streets shooting up drugs in front of young kids and people walking by that are innocent people that don't want to engage in any of that activity. And I think they realized they made a big mistake. But at the end of the day, people that are selling drugs, addicting people and destroying their lives, they do need to be held accountable. And laws do need to be in place to prevent that. And then, of course, we need everybody to come together to help, that obviously need to help those people that are on the street, that are either homeless or in a state where they're having mental health issues, and I think that's a lot of those people that are out there on the street. But at the end of the day, the people that are responsible for selling that and destroying their lives, they do need to be held accountable.
So did that convolute things? And like, I assume you have a Pacific Northwest division up there.
Yeah.
Like, did that, or I don't know how much you know about it even.
Yeah, because that's not in my area.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with it, and I'm grateful to be in Indiana, and we don't have that problem where they wanted to decriminalize drugs, and I think it was a big mistake that they made out there, no question about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be the person that orchestrated that and said, hey, let's do this, and then all of a sudden you realize it's a real problem.
A lot of people talk about, they use this saying, at least, like, this is the meth capital of the world. I think I've heard that probably about a dozen or more cities before. Is there actually one that's defined? Is there one city or one place that produces meth more than the others?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand there was a lot of production of methamphetamine that occurred throughout the Midwest years back. But what we're seeing now is the meth is just mass produced in Mexico and then flooded into the United States. So I wouldn't say that there's one specific city. It's just a devastating, debilitating drug that's out there, and it's one of our biggest challenges right there with fentanyl.
But Midwest was kind of the
no question about it, and there are significant parts of Indiana had to deal with that. No question about it.
Mm-hmm. And then I want to go back to that whole cartel. Do you believe that like powerful, wealthy people are involved with like helping them out?
Well, I think anybody, when you say powerful, wealthy people, what do you mean? Like an average citizen?
No, like someone like who's really like in like really in the limelight. That's really that maybe speaks out about something like this, but then they're kind of involved behind closed doors. Like, is there? I'm being a little conspiratorial, but is that a belief at all?
Well, I just think you're forming opinions or potential conclusions, but the reality is when it comes to drug trafficking, you have to look at what these cartels do. They're going to get any advantage they can. They're billion-dollar corporations for like illegal maneuvering, right? So just think of like how a top corporation in the U.S. would operate. Now look at one that wants to be a corrupt organization. They probably have attorneys that they're talking to. They can flip military people, law enforcement people, and they're getting an education to try to thwart us here in the United States with anything they can. And that's all based on how they just want to keep making money. So, they bring in people that they probably have systems where they're sending stuff in trapped out vehicles that they're x-raying it to make sure it's not getting detected. Like, there's so many things that they're willing to do, and over years of doing it, they're trying to do everything they can to get the products here. But at the end of the day, I think we're rising to the occasions and doing the very best we can to prevent that. And at the same time, we're doing the best we can to hold people accountable. But with the fentanyl, it's very tough when people are using drugs and it's being added to drugs. So we have to raise that awareness, and I think we're doing that. And we're very grateful to see that the numbers are going down. And I'm the first to say one life lost is one too many.
Mm-hmm. And how is like media and social media kind of played into this whole fentanyl crisis? Well,
I think we've utilized media and social media to get our messaging out. But I think when you have smartphones, drug dealers and individuals with their abilities to communicate on certain devices, that plays a significant role and presents challenges to law enforcement all the time by various applications that people are using to not be detected and everything like that. And that's why we have to do what we do and get out there and challenge that. So that is definitely a challenge for us. But at the end of the day, we're utilizing opportunities to message things out on social media and the media as well, because it's important to get that awareness out there. And it's also important to let people know if you're dealing these drugs and they have fentanyl in them and you harm somebody, you can be held accountable. And again, not every one of those cases are that easy to do that, because it is a challenge, but a lot of them we've had success in very proud of that work.
What about a show like Euphoria? Do you guys pay attention to that shit, or has it been seen as a net positive or a net loss? Are you familiar with that show at all?
No, I'm not familiar with that show.
It's a highly popular HBO show, and
Okay.
there has been fentanyl overdoses and whatnot on it. So I've just obviously don't watch it, so it's a moot question, but it's wildly popular with the youth, and I wonder if they view that as like cool or as like, oh, this is obviously very bad because look what happened to some of these people. But I don't know. I guess that's for people in the audience to weigh in on it too. What about, have you seen Breaking Bad or Narcos or anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen all those shows.
Which show best represents the DEA, would you say?
Well, I don't think any of them best represents what happens. So like you have to realize, like, shows in whether it's television shows or movies, they're depicting certain things that occur. And I think the best way that you can represent, like, in a television show, things happen like very quickly,
yeah,
and they kind of forget the whole aspect of the court system, that how long a case actually takes to put together at times, and the challenges of, like, a minute of fun is a few days of paperwork. So there's a lot of tedious paperwork that comes with our job. And then I remember one of the special agents in charge with DEA when I was real early in my career, he says you have a lot of tedious paperwork with moments of sheer terror. So that's how our job can be, right? It's like you never know what you get into. And so some of these shows, it could have some common things like we do, but it's they do the best they can, and it's not always accurate to what happens. But getting back to that sheer moments of terror, I think it's exciting when we're working a case and we know, like, we have to go arrest somebody. That's where it can get challenging, right? Because when you're going to arrest somebody, they just may decide they're not going to jail, and that can happen to you. And some of these people can be armed, and it can bring a challenge. So I think of a case for me that was definitely an awkward situation. So this is back in still probably it was probably the late or early 2000s still. We had a hurricane that was coming into the Miami area, so our office is closed. It's a Friday night, and we're supposed to get a hurricane, I think, in the middle of the night into the next morning. So how it plays out is it's about 8:30 at night. I'm single at the time. I get a phone call with one of my buddies who was a really good leader within DEA, and he was actually at one point the special agent in charge here in Chicago, and his name's Brian McKnight. And Brian calls me up and tells me, hey, we got a beat on a fugitive that took off from Newark, and he's in South Florida, and I think I know where he is. Are you in or are you out? And I'm like, I'm getting ready to go out on a date. It's a Friday night, and I think we're dealing with the hurricane the next day. And I'm like, of course I'm in. Yeah, let's go. So we end up setting up surveillance, and when we get there, the girlfriend's car isn't there. So we're waiting, and that's what, like, we're a movie, or like we're talking about the movie, the television show. Yeah, you go on a scene and you're there and it's over with. And well, we sometimes have to spend hours waiting. It's not as easy as a TV show makes it to be.
Yeah.
So in this particular thing, we were fortunate. The girl came in to the parking lot, so we're monitoring the radio, and we hear she's rolling in. So what ends up happening is she comes in, and she went to the grocery store, and I think as I have it correct, they were cooking shrimp scampi. So the fugitive's up in her apartment sauteing some shrimp scampi. So how it plays out is we grab her right when she's walking into the apartment building, and McKnight, of course, he was a city cop before DEA. Within seconds, he's got her to admit that the fugitive's upstairs in her apartment. So right after she tells us this information, she starts becoming belligerent and starts yelling, how do I know you're the police? So we're like, oh, geez, so she's going to alert the guy before we can get to him. Okay. So we had some people outside to potentially cover the back if the guy was going to take off. So myself and another guy who's an unbelievable agent, he was a decorated Marine, we go up to the guy's door. She had given us the keys. And then Brian and a couple of the other people, they're still on the main floor just in case, there was some other movement. So what ends up happening is we take the keys. We're like the Keystone Cops. We're putting the key in and nothing's happening. We're like, she gave us the wrong key. So Rick, who's with me, finally knocks on the door. And then to our surprise, the guy comes right to the door. But he's a lot bigger than we thought he was. And he's probably like 6'2", 6'3", 240. And Rick tells him, hey, we're the police. We need you to step outside. He pushes Rick. So Rick takes a step back. And then I go right in to get him. But he loops a wall. So as he's looping the wall, I got my gun out. I'm thinking he's going to grab a gun or something is going on. So what ends up happening, I see him run to a back bedroom, and he's slamming the door shut. But I remember him like knocking a light switch over, so the room started to go dark. And as the door shut in on me, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go through the door. I mean, what are my options? Unbeknownst to me, two of our other people that were there, one was a guy who was also a decorated Marine. And then the other guy was a guy that everybody in DEA knows. His name was Chad Michaels. And Chad, unfortunately, passed away during his career with DEA. He was on our FAST team deployed to Afghanistan. And he was on a helicopter when they were doing an operation. And the helicopter crashed and he died. But he was the other guy that was there. And both of those guys, they scaled the second floor balcony because when we had taken the keys, we had locked them out. So now it's like four of us, but Rick and I aren't even aware they're right behind us. So Kowitsky tells me after, hey buddy, sorry about the door situation. I pushed you right through that door because we weren't getting bottlenecked at the door. And then all I know is I'm on that fugitive face to face with him, and it's just an all out fight at that point. He is not going to jail, and I can't even see to holster my weapon. And I'm trying to like pull my weapon back. He's trying to grab it. And we just had a vicious fight with that guy. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, that can happen. Does that happen all the time? No, it doesn't. But for me, there's no doubt that was a life or death situation that we were in. And that was a guy that was just not going to jail. And as we're fighting with him, the furniture in the room got all disheveled. The closet doors got pushed in. The bed frame fell
like a movie.
Yeah, it fell apart. He's bleeding. He must have hit his head on one of the dressers or something. We have his blood all over us. We're trying to handcuff him. He's biting everybody. Every time they try to handcuff him, he's biting him. We finally get the guy handcuffed, and it was just one of these things that we're like, holy moly, what we just went through. So then we have to take the guy to the hospital. And then we had to get like some glass out of us, and we had to get treated a little bit for all the blood that was on us. And we did get to show him our badge and let him know that the long arm of the law extended all the way from New Jersey to Florida at that time when we got him. But it was definitely something challenging. And you talk about it in law enforcement all the time, like who are people you would want to go through a door with? And I was just blessed that those were some amazing people that I had to go through that door with and deal with that situation. And people might be like, well, there was four people and there was the one guy. Yeah, well, if you're one person and you don't care what the ramifications are and you're not worried about like hurting somebody else, you can be a handful for somebody no matter how tough you think you are. And that was a crazy situation. And I'm telling you, it was something that we had to put an offense on him like he's never seen it. We know we were fighting for our life in there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You'll never forget that one.
No, definitely not. And he wasn't going to jail.
No.
Even we had zip ties on his ankles. He broke them off. It was like a...
Is he still incarcerated?
I haven't followed up on that case because it was a fugitive. We arrested him, but he was in the country illegally as well. So that was a challenge we faced even back then. But it was just something that it can happen, and there are dangerous things that happen. But it's not an everyday, every moment type thing.
But that's interesting. So your biggest frustration right now with all this is counties or cities that are kind of just allowing people back on the streets that you guys have locked up. Is that correct?
I think that's a big challenge. I think you're making a great point. And the frustration is we're just having to use our resources to rearrest them again. And sometimes, the difference that we have is that we have to make a split-second decision. And when you see, and you should be evaluating people's significant criminal histories, we'll be asked, well, why are they getting a bond? We can't control that, but what we can control, we do, and we do the very best we can, and we're the furthest thing from perfect, but we do the best we can.
Yeah. Is there anything that's kind of around the corner? Like what scares you the most as far as like the future and where the country is at in regards to drugs?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we're seeing. There's a lot of stuff like with technology that is going to be exploited to some things that are going to help us out, and there are some things that are definitely going to hurt us. And I think a lot of the wiretapping that we do, I think there's a lot of challenges with that, with the new technologies that are out there, and it limits some of the abilities that we have when we can lay out probable cause to support judicially authorized intercepts of a specific person. And I think that's not changing in our favor, and it's a big challenge. Because you're looking at a lot of people don't understand what we have to do to get those approvals for various intercepts and everything like that. And sometimes with the newer technology, that doesn't always get to occur the way it should.
So you guys are you're hamstrung in some sense.
There's no question. Yeah. There's no question. Wow. But we still find ways to infiltrate, and we still find ways to take down people that think they're flawless and perfect, because it only takes them one mistake, and when they make it, we seize the moment.
Yeah. Well, I once again, thanks again for jumping on. I know you got to run here soon. Is there anything else we didn't really cover that you wanted to get out there? I feel like that fentanyl stat was encouraging. I know that was just Indiana. Is that nationwide too?
Yeah, there was I think there's about a 20% reduction nationwide and stuff like that. And so some of the numbers are still coming in. But yeah, I did want to add a couple things because this is really important.
Please.
We have so many external relationships with fentanyl type coalitions and family members that have lost loved ones. And it is absolutely devastating for them, but they are people that I always say when I get an opportunity to speak with them, I can't thank them enough, because think about this, Eddie. You lost a loved one, whether it's your son, your daughter, a husband, a wife. And remember, this is like the number one killer for people 18 to 45, the fentanyl poisoning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like that and cancer. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who hasn't been affected in some way.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So when we talk to these people, I tell them, you are an inspiration and a hero to me, because the fact that you're even coming here to talk to us and you're going out to spread awareness because of the pain you received and what happened to you and the devastating thing, the tragedy that happened in your life, and you're out there trying to make a difference, it's absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. And I just have such respect for them, because I tell them I don't even know if I would be in the fetal position just because of what actually happened. Because you have to remember, some of these people that are one of these statistics that died of a fentanyl poisoning, they didn't go to say, I'm going to take 10 pills, I'm going to overdose. They took a pill and they died. So that's why any chance we get to raise awareness and message, it's important to do it. And I know from a DEA standpoint, our acting administrator, Derek Maltz, has sought out professional athletes, successful people, whether they're actors or various components that are out there in the media, social media people, to utilize their platforms to raise awareness, because a lot of times young, impressionable people look up to all these people. And if you could just get that messaging out there, it is so important, because we can't do this all on our own. We'll arrest people, but we're taking it to levels. We got to get out there and continue to raise the awareness, and that can't be done alone.
And one more thing, actually. Do you guys ever Is there ever kind of any beef with like the pharmaceutical industry? Like what's your relationship with them?
Well, in the role I have, I'm not dealing with the pharmaceutical things. I would be more at our headquarters elements that deal with that. But I think there's a lot of stuff that we bring to their attention for the appropriate regulatory issues that come up, and they have reporting that's required. And we have like a whole program, the DEA diversion, that is responsible for dealing with the regulation of pharmaceutical pills.
Yeah, because I know you're probably like, all right, how many shows are you going to bring up? But that show, Dope Sick, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
That's one of the best shows I've ever seen, to be honest with you. And I think it paints a very strong picture of what that, trajectory is if you're kind of getting into that, bad slope, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I just think that it's so important to, like, and what we're trying to message is we're not just going to high school and college kids, but we're hitting elementary schools, and we're hitting everything we can. And there's anybody that may be listening, there's so many good programs that DEA has to talk about the dangers of drugs and what drugs are coming on and the threats of these drugs. And if you just go to DEA.gov, you can find any of that type of information. But it's a definite conversation piece, and it's a definite plan a parent should have with their loved ones. And they should even have plans like if their loved one is out and they want to have a code word that they have to say if they're not in a good environment and they need to get out of it, just so they keep face with some of their friends or something like that. You got to have plans, and you got to be willing to say no. And I tell the people, especially if I'm talking to an athlete or somebody, if you go and you visited a friend from college and you're over their house, you're meeting their friends. What are you meeting them for? 3 or 4 hours? 4 hours? And you're gonna take everything you had in your life everyone that loved you and cared about you told you what not to do. You're gonna sacrifice that for 4 hours of meeting somebody new that doesn't even care about you. It's a no-go.
Yeah.
And people have to have that confidence to be able to say that. And even the people that say, I like my recreational drugs. Well, you don't know what's getting put into these recreational drugs. We could go through a list of people that they didn't sign up one time because they were to die because they decided to use cocaine or something like that. And those are the challenges.
And I know you're the drug enforcement agency, but do you ever foresee a world where you can figure out a way how to like do it more recreationally, like controlled, or is it always going to be the line like abstinence is the best?
Yeah, if that,
you know what I mean?
abstinence is the best.
Yeah,
I mean it's hard because if you look at things from the perspective that we see it in law enforcement, families are being destroyed because of people being involved in drugs, and there's really nothing that's going to benefit that, and that's how we're going to see it.
Yeah, that's the way you guys attack it. So
yeah,
there's really not. I just wondered if there was, if there was a way, but probably not from your guys' angle.
Yeah,
which I certainly understand, and it needs to happen. Then, all right, last question: is there a relationship with the DEA and the FDA?
The FDA,
the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah, we have relationships with everybody, and can you expand?
Well, just like that, like the FDA was the one who kind of approved Oxy, and it was obvious. There were, we don't have to get into the whole story. Watch Dope Sick if you want to know that, but that feels like a good opportunity where a DEA would be able to kind of clean something like that up from them approving something like that to be legal, but. That's a very certain circumstance that I'm pointing at, but I'm sure there's some.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that would go on out of our headquarters with these type of components that you're talking about. But at the end of the day, I think it's important for people to realize that DEA, we work each and every day with our partners on any type of investigation if it warrants that collaborative effort, and we're the first to work hand in hand and. Leaving it, I know you were saying we're going to wrap up. I did want to throw out there,
yeah, of course,
that we're going to be taking applications for DEA, and it's I think you're airing this. Is it around the 11th? You were thinking?
Yeah, but it's going to May 1st.
Oh, May 1st.
Yeah.
So right around a week or so after this will air, we're taking applications to become a DEA special agent, and just from my view, it's been an unbelievable ride, an unbelievable journey. And it's a good feeling when you come to work and it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like you're hanging out with your buddies and going there to work on a mission to go keep your country a safer, better place and do the best you can. We are taking applications, and if you go to DEA.gov, it lays out everything. But obviously, we're looking for people that have a bachelor's degree, and then you do have to take a written test, a physical fitness test, psychological, mental, and a medical exam. And of course, you do have to take a polygraph. But if you're able to get through these things and you look into it, it's an unbelievable job. We have 23 field divisions all over the country with offices in all over the states and even offices all over the world. So it's a great place to work, and I hope some people will have the interest of working in the area of drug and money laundering enforcement.
I bet you that people that listen to this will apply. So go check that out, DEA.org, and you can also find all the statistics and everything like that.
Yeah,
too, right?
DEA.gov, yes.
DEA.gov, sorry. Excuse me. Mike, thanks so much, man.
Yeah. Hey, Eddie, thank you.
Yeah,
and thanks for all the
appreciate it.
questions, and just really appreciate this opportunity. And let's go out and encourage somebody. And if someone's a listener and they can make a sacrifice to be a pillar of strength and go help someone that might need some help, let's do it. We need to get as many people off the drugs as we can.
For sure. Thanks, Mike. And thank you, everybody, for listening. That's it for today. We will see you guys next time.